Welcome back to the Nostalgia Factor, guys. I am your host, Ryan, and today we're going to be doing another edition of Nostalgic Blast Reviews, where I take a look at the best and worst in gaming. And of course, if you guys thought that I was completely running out of Yu-Gi-Oh games to talk about here on this channel, oh boy, you were wrong, because Konami likes to make money, and they've released a lot of games in this franchise over the years. Now, I've covered many Yu-Gi-Oh games before, all of varying quality, from the Yu-Gi-Oh 5D's DS games to some of the GBA title classics like Rechef of Destruction and Sacred Cards. But today, guys, I'm going to be covering a more obscure Yu-Gi-Oh game that goes with the tournament style of gameplay, loosely adapting the Battle City arc, and originally releasing back in 2003, we have Yu-Gi-Oh! Stairway to the Destined Duel on the Gameboy Advance. The Destined Duel was one of these Yu-Gi-Oh games that I played a lot growing up. It was one of those Yu-Gi-Oh games that I went back and played many times when I was a kid, alongside some of the GBA titles, the 5D's games, and a variety of other games I've covered here on the channel. The difference is, though, Stairway to the Destined Duel wasn't one of the more popular Yu-Gi-Oh games for me to go back and play. I mainly stuck with the World Championship games, Rechef of Destruction, Sacred Cards. I went through a lot of the other Yu-Gi-Oh games I thought had better mechanics. I liked the dueling more. Some of them had more in-depth stories. So when I was doing this review and looking back on a Yu-Gi-Oh game I played growing up, I was thinking, does Stairway to the Destined Duel still hold up to this day? And, well, this video will help answer that question. When it comes to visuals, Stairway to the Destined Duel is an alright looking GBA game. Not bad, not really excelling in any area. The overworld map looks decent. The character portraits for the different duelists that you fight throughout the game look fine. The actual dueling animations for playing monster, spell, and trap cards look fine, along with the actual monster portrait art that you have for each of the decks you can select throughout the game. But in all honesty, this game really isn't going to blow anyone away in the visual department, but it's not a bad-looking game from a visual standpoint. Musically speaking, and I can't believe I'm saying this for a Yu-Gi-Oh game, but this is actually one of the weaker soundtracks, I think, out of a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh licensed games that came out from this generation for the GBA and the Nintendo DS. This is something that I've praised past Yu-Gi-Oh games for. Like the Yu-Gi-Oh 5D's DS trilogy, I actually really like the soundtrack in all those games. They're action-y, rock and roll, you got some jazzy tracks that get you pumped up for each duel that you fight. There's different tracks for different duelists, whether they're boss duelists, the World Championship mode, whatever it is. They have good soundtracks to them, to the point where I would go out of my way to listen to the OSTs of the 5D's games, for example. But Stairway to the Destined Duel really doesn't have that. It has serviceable music, which is something extremely important when you're going through multiple duels, and that can get pretty repetitive after a while, which is a common critique of a lot of the early Yu-Gi-Oh games. But the soundtrack's fine, it's serviceable. I really don't think Stairway to the Destined Duel is going to surprise anybody in the visual and music department, which is something that a lot of the other Yu-Gi-Oh games have done better. I mean, I honestly wish I had more to say in the actual gameplay department, but unfortunately I really don't. Especially when it comes down to the basic Yu-Gi-Oh formula that we have available here to us. Because at the end of the day, what I've described in past Yu-Gi-Oh reviews, where you're able to assemble your own decks, buy cards from shops, put together the best combination of spells, traps, and monsters that suit your playstyle, as well as fighting off against randomized duelists and being able to participate in tournaments. This has all really been done before for the basic card mechanics, because this was back when Yu-Gi-Oh was in its original form with spells, traps, and monsters without, you know, synchro summoning or pendulum summoning or any of that stuff. This is the same basic Yu-Gi-Oh card gameplay I've talked about in other reviews. You lay down your spells and traps, you summon monsters, deplete your opponent's life points till they drop to 0. The duels themselves, like I'll show you here, are pretty standard. And honestly, you could look at any Yu-Gi-Oh game from this era and it would be the exact same kind of card gameplay. It's fun for what it is. It's pretty classic given the fact it's on the GBA, and the mechanics work very well. It allows you a good dueling experience if you're into this older style of Yu-Gi-Oh! But at the end of the day, it's the same card gameplay that we've talked about and you've probably seen in dozens of other Yu-Gi-Oh! Games at this point, so the gameplay is solid for what it is. It works well for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. But at the end of the day, this game's core gameplay, whether it be the tournaments or the actual duels themselves, don't really stand out, especially when stacked up against other games that do so many other things better. Overall, guys, Stairway to the Destined Duel isn't a terrible video game by any means, nor is it the worst Yu-Gi-Oh game I've played. A lot of the things that I've talked about here really do make up for a decent experience if you're interested in checking out Yu-Gi-Oh licensed games or you're a fan of the series. But this game really doesn't do a lot to stand out from other games that do the stories better, better visuals, better soundtracks, and spice up the gameplay formula, whether we're adapting the 5D's duel runners or adding something new with like the day-night cycle and taking classes in Spirit Caller. The Destined Duel is a decent looking Gameboy Advance game with some solid Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay, not really a good story to follow despite the fact it's based around Battle City, and a soundtrack that really doesn't get you into the duels, but it's a playable experience. If you're interested in checking this one out, I do recommend it, but don't go into it thinking it's going to blow you away, whether as a Yu-Gi-Oh game or a video game in general. This is an okay one that you could check out anytime. And that's really it for this one, guys. I don't want to have the impression come off that Stairway is a terrible Yu-Gi-Oh game, but it's a pretty mediocre one, all things considered. It's a pretty okay experience that, if you're interested, you should go and check out, but I can't really give any higher recommendation than that one on this. So, that being said, though, let me know what you guys think about Yu-Gi-Oh! Stairway to the Destined Duel in the comment section down below. Did you grow up playing this game? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Are there any other Yu-Gi-Oh! Games I should be covering that I haven't talked about before, since I do like this franchise? But let me know your thoughts down below. If you did enjoy the review, give it a like. It really does help out the channel. And subscribe if you guys want to keep up with future content, whether it be gaming reviews, collaborations, collection videos, or anything else we do here for gaming nostalgia. Otherwise, guys, this has been Ryan from the Nostalgia Factor saying, keep on gaming.